It is opening week in the National Football League, and we just got done with opening week in college football. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. You see four of us because that's our crew tonight. Welcome to our season opening edition of the National Football League, and we're going to talk some college stuff because there's some incredible games out there as well. Tonight's crew, George Eichhorn. Welcome back, George.
Good to be here, Scott. Thanks.
And we're going to go Jeremy Ballricks, but he's been moving around the network a little bit. This guy does a lot of stuff. He'll be doing Fire Up Wisconsin beginning on Monday night, and he does a nice job on Fire Up, as well as we're going to be doing another Professor and the Pupil. The plan is this Sunday. So welcome, Jack. Welcome back, Jeremy. Glad to have you on board again.
Thank you, sir.
And last but not least, my co-host, Mel Farr Jr. Ready to roll, Mel?
Yes, sir. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing great. All right, before we get everything started here, wait, hold on one second. I have one other guy who's going to be on here that I'm on the verge of putting out there. Will be Travis Holmes. So he'll be on in just a moment. But meanwhile, we're going to get into some of the things that we're going to talk about here. So hang on one second. So first of all, let's talk about the weekend that was in college football. And we're going to lead off here with Colorado football. And Travis will be joining us in just a moment. George, give me your assessment on what we saw with the Colorado Buffaloes.
Well, I was one of the minority on this show that did not predict Colorado and Deion Sanders to win that game. But boy, oh boy, what a hell of a game. Oh, his son, what a fantastic game. Over 500 yards passing. And I'll tell you what, what is it, 83 new players or whatever he's got on that roster. So far, so good. I'm telling you, he looks really good and quite an offensive explosion. TCU, I thought, did okay, but obviously not enough to win. So it's a big win. It's a big win for Colorado. It's a big win for Sanders and for his son, of course. And it's a big win because Colorado has been in the doldrums for so many years. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy that they won. And he has a big following, and he deserves a big following. Sanders.
All right, let's go to Travis Holmes. All right, Travis, this is when you're going to find out what your true value of a broadcaster is. Just in time for college football. All right, Travis, let's talk about the Colorado TCU game.
Oh man, that was that was a fun one, and it stinks because if I'm wrong big, I guess, and I was wrong on this one. When you asked me my prediction on this one, I said, "Hey man, they're going to lose this game. Absolutely, the spread is 21 points, and I don't know what Deion's team's they're going to be 500, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Foot and mouth, continue with saying, but." And I was texting with Coach Bono while the game was going on. We were going back and forth. This was a rough first game. You don't know what the offense is going to look like. You don't know, like, everything outside of where they were playing went technically in Deion's team's favor, simply because how do you prepare against something you don't know exactly what they're going to run as far as defense, as far as, everything. I mean, they came out running a freaking air raid offense. That wasn't even the same offense that they ran at Jackson State. It had some similarities in some ways, but no, it was a totally different thing. That's the first part. The second part is TCU did what TCU does, and they kind of crumbled in that second half. Now, again, I own the fact that I was absolutely wrong if we're even getting into the minutia of how they failed, in the third quarter from an offensive staff. I now acknowledge, hey, this team is still going to be better than what I originally thought they were. However, ... TCU's offensive coordinators just screwed up. They ran for like 280 yards, but 180 of that came in the third quarter, right? You simply stopped running in the middle of the fourth quarter. And it happened three first downs in a row where even the announcer started saying it. Like, hey, why are you getting away from the run when you're getting like 8 yards a carry in the whole second half? This doesn't make sense. But they continued doing it. And that was the big thing with this team is, unfortunately, Colorado's team is light in the butt, if you know what I mean, as far as the trenches are concerned. And it showed. TCU just took their foot off the gas and tried to throw the ball, and it didn't work out well for them.
Okay, Jeremy, you're the only one that didn't make a prediction in this group, so you don't have to eat crow on this one. All you get to do is talk about it.
No, but on Fire Up, I did say Colorado would win, so I'm good with this.
Okay.
I don't have to eat crow because I predicted them to win. Because Shadur Sanders was being recruited by Alabama, Florida, Florida State, LSU, and Michigan, and he chose to go where his dad was at the HBCU and travel with him to Colorado. This kid had 5-star potential. He was a 4-star recruit, and he just showed why. He lit TCU up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going to go to Carolyn Bardia. All right, George, you get the honors to read this one.
Credit to Dion, but that's not the TCU team of last year. Sanders is a hell of a QB, and the two-way guy is ridiculous.
All right, well, George, now you read it. Why don't you give your take on it?
Well, it's not exactly the same team as last year. We know that. They scored all those points against Michigan in that semifinal game, and then they laid an egg in the final game as Georgia won the championship last January. So, of course, it's not the same team, TCU. They're still a really good team, but I agree with you, Travis. I mean, there's some coaching blunders in there. There's some strategies you have to question about, especially with the, like you said, the running game. And, I mean, like you said, Jeremy, Sanders just lit him up. I mean, he lit him up, and it proved to be the magic potion, the magic combination, if you will.
And if any listeners happen to want to get more into the minutia of how Sanders did in that game, J.C. O'Sullivan, he's a former NFL quarterback. He has a YouTube channel, the QB School on YouTube. Check him out. He has a 30-minute breakdown talking about the details of what Sanders did well, what opportunities he had, and kind of what things NFL coaches might even be interested in looking at it. And I thought it was a really interesting breakdown.
Okay. All right, Mel, give me your take on this.
Yeah, well, I'm the only one out of you three that chose. I mean, Coach Bono had Colorado. We chose Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, and we were texting back and forth during the game. Didn't really surprise me. This guy is a special human being. He's a leader of men, and that's what you have to have first and foremost. And then you get the guys to believe in his vision, and everybody's bought into his vision. Of what he sees for the University of Colorado. TCU is not the same team. I mean, you think about it. They lost their offensive coordinator. He's over at Clemson now. Your quarterback, you lose your quarterback. I know the guy that started on Saturday was originally the starting quarterback. I think he played in the game last year. I think he got hurt in that game too, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
But Max Duggan was the one that finished out the season. Was the one that actually took him to the national championship game, and they lost a couple of receivers and they lost some running backs. Now you talk about, they were running, their defense is porous. Both teams had no defense. TCU probably could have helped themselves out a little bit by not giving them the ball right back so quickly, because, throwing the ball, or they could have used the clock a little bit better because they were able to run the football. Although Colorado was not able to run the football very well, TCU could run the football, and they probably should have used that to their advantage. But I think the coach might have got a little bit, nervous, and figured that he would be able to beat that team in the shootout. They had a heck of a stand there in that last series that eventually sealed the game for them. But it doesn't surprise me, because you just have to understand, who this man is. I mean, everything that he's done is turned to gold. I mean, he's been a success no matter what it is that he's done. And you look at what he's done at Jackson State. People question his coaching. I mean, he's been coaching since Pee Wee League. He's been coaching his kids since Pee Wee League. I mean, his son had originally committed to Florida Atlantic because I think Lane Kiffin was there. I think that obviously Dion had something to do with that. Then he gets the job. He said he wanted to coach his son, so he took the Jackson State job, and he got the Jackson State job. Now he wants to take his kids and put them on a bigger platform. Wanted to take him to a Power 5 school, show the world what his kids are capable of doing. And his son showed out, man. He showed up and absolutely showed out, looked poised. The stage didn't look too big for him. Definitely looks like a Heisman Trophy candidate. You look at the quarterbacks that are there, and then now the Pac-12. I mean, they got some dogs over there in the Pac-12. So I'm not surprised by what Colorado did. How many games they'll win this year? There's no telling. Will they? I think that Dion will have his team ready to play each and every week. I don't think this is going to be a one-off where they get so hyped for this particular game that they might have a letdown next week. They got a big game coming up this week. I mean, they're going to be on big noon, whatever they call it, on Fox. They're going to be on again playing Nebraska. Nebraska, they were in a dogfight against Minnesota. Probably should have won that game. So that's going to be a good game, and it's must-see TV because, obviously Deion Sanders is there and what they did last week, the show that those guys put on last week.
All right, let me go over a couple things here real quick. First of all, Brent DeWitt, I was also wrong. Shadur Sanders is a Heisman Trophy candidate now. Sure looks like, 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not a bad day's work. You can get
and 0 picks, 0 turnovers.
Right, yeah, that too. So that was good. Also, I should point out that, like Mel just went ahead and said, and I'll reinforce it, okay? Two things came away in my mind about the game. Deion Sanders will never be an NFL coach. I am convinced he loves to coach kids. He'll never go pros. It's just not him. Number two, okay, let's talk about the cost of Saturday's game here. A year ago, to see Colorado and attend every CU game, $222. I love these stats. This year against Nebraska, for whom I think they're going to blow out Matt Rule anyways, $476 of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. And you're talking about a university that had to pay Deion, $28 million. They didn't have the money to do it, but they raised it really quickly to offset his salary. Unbelievable what we've done over the weekend. But there's no way I'll ever think in my mind that Deion Sanders could be an NFL coach after what I saw Saturday. I wasn't sure. That reinforced it. But boy, how'd you like to pay $222 for bad football versus $476 for a former Pac-12 foe that they used to be dominated by? Guess what? I think Colorado is going to be blowing out the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And Matt Rule, I know you have a lot of work to do, but by the end of this weekend, you'll be 0-2. And yes, I did pick Colorado last week to win it as well.
Oh man! So it sounds like Deion made you a believer.
Yeah, I got something to add. Nebraska,
he really did.
one-score games.
A lot of ground.
Nebraska in one-score game. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we have a lot of ground to get to. Just want to make sure we have a lot of topics.
Just got a quick little factoid about Nebraska football in the Big Ten. Ever since they joined the Big Ten, they have only won 8 one-score games out of 42.
Oh, great number. Wow. Okay. Well, I got news for you. This isn't going to be a one-score game.
No, and even if it was, they wouldn't win it.
and now I don't think it's going to take a rocket scientist for us to be able to go out on a limb with this one, as we did last week with TCU. All right, as I mentioned, a lot to get to. Let's talk about the fact that LSU, to me, hasn't defeated Florida State since 1982, and Coach Ryan Kelly ended up eating crow in the Tigers' convincing 45-24 loss. Now FSU is number 4 in the country. And what's interesting about it is the game was being played in Orlando. Oh boy, that looked like Tallahassee's South. So, you know what, Mel? I'll let you take the lead on this.
I wasn't hurt by it. Brian Kelly, I respect him as a coach. I think he does a great job. I mean, he had a very difficult job up there at Notre Dame. He's been successful everywhere that he has been. But obviously, if you're an Alabama fan, you can't root for another team in the SEC West. So I wasn't. My feelings weren't hurt that they ended up losing that game. I actually felt kind of good about it. Florida State looked pretty good, played pretty well. LSU, they have some questions, I believe, at the quarterback position. I know that kid transferred over there from Arizona State, played there last year, but I think they have some questions there at that position, whether or not that's the guy that he's going to be able to take them to where they ultimately want to go. The SEC West is extremely competitive. And they still got after losing that game to an ACC team, they still have a whole slate of SEC games that they got to deal with. That they have to play, and whether it's Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas A&M. I mean, Arkansas. I mean, the list goes on and on. As far as who they're going to have to deal with over there in the West, and that's a game that he found out about his football team real quick, that they probably weren't exactly who they thought they were. And they're gonna have to go back to the lab and try to figure out what went right, what went wrong, and what they can do to right the ship. Because football, every game matters. College football, every game matters. You lose another game, you're out of the playoff picture. You can just forget about talking about, or you can forget about playing for a national championship. So, right now their backs are up against the wall. They're going to try to figure out, what it is that who they are as a football team and where they want to go. And it's going to be very, very difficult, especially when you lose this early in the season. Now, the thing I'm happy about, I'm glad, that they played a team, a team that everybody wanted to watch. They didn't play a cupcake. They didn't come out the gate playing a cupcake. And I tip my cap to them for doing that. That's what we want to see as college football fans. We want to see these guys play meaningful games. Nobody's interested in seeing somebody score 81 points against a team that's, irrelevant, or putting up 70 points against Mercer or something. Nobody wants to see that. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. We understand that. Although, Texas State did beat Baylor. So, things do happen. And in Appalachian State, they did beat Michigan once upon a time. So things do happen.
So did Colorado.
Let me
when
go
they
to
were
KR
unranked.
Lombardi's comment. Let me go to KR Lombardi's comment. This is really good.
That's a good point that she makes. And Travis had talked about. She said nobody's talking about Sean Lewis, coordinator OC, that he was at Kent State and he was very innovative offensive coach. And Travis was talking about, they didn't know what to expect. You go back and look at the coaches and where they coached at and what they did. You take a little bit of what he did at Kent State. You look at what Deion did at Jackson State, and then you got to try to figure out what it is that you're going to be looking at. But it probably wouldn't have mattered anyway. That's a Big 12 team. They don't play defense anyway. They're just trying to score points. And Colorado's going to fit right in the way they play defense right now. I mean, it's just non-existent.
Yeah, I want to go read this quote verbatim. Nobody's talking about Lewis, the Colorado offensive coordinator. He was at Kent State, and he's very innovative offensive coach. They were very creative. Just so you know, Mel, I don't think you know much about KR Lombardi, but he is one of our baseball analysts, and he will probably eventually come on inside the Pigskin. He's indicated desire to talk football, so you'll get to meet him down the road. All right, before I turn over to Travis, I do want to make mention while I have the opportunity that Inside the Pigskin is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Feel free to participate in the chat room or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Go and advertise cost efficiently. Call me 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter @TribuneSouth/X, whatever you want to call it. Kenny Ebling is behind the scenes. Want to get that out there. What's up, Doe? Lions Talk by Chat Board. Very good to have you on. All right, Travis, now that you've had time to digest this, go ahead. What's your take on what happened with LSU?
Well, it's like a lot of those college football games that you see earlier in the season. It's hard to chew on. It's hard to gauge where a team really is. In those first few weeks of the season, you kind of can't look at the rankings. You kind of just have to look at the teams and look at how they play and come to your own conclusion of where you feel this team should be ranked. Obviously, it seems, or it looks to be, that Florida State should at minimum be ranked in the top 10, top 25, whatever you want to call it. We'll let that shake out over the next few weeks. As far as LSU, however, I mean, that's the other half of this equation. Are they really a top 14 team in the nation? Probably not. And that's the hard part of seeing this. Like, again, it's going to flesh itself out over the rest of the season. Like, Jaden Daniels had a really up and down game. Like, he has some true bonehead plays. However, he also didn't have a running game. He was the team's leading rusher and passer in this game. For an LSU team, that is a kiss of death in and of itself. Like, let's just be clear about that. So he didn't have that support in the running game that he probably would have needed to take the pressure off of his shoulders in his first game with the team. But at the end of the day, he is the guy that's leading this team. That's literally why he transferred there. So at the end of it all, when this thing was scheduled, I mean, this game was scheduled back in like 2019 between LSU and FSU, right? When they had the 3-game series. And at the time, FSU wasn't a good team. Let's be clear about that. FSU was a bad team at the time. I mean, I would even argue that UCF was a bigger draw during those losing years, at least. So I think it's in all the teams' best interest that both teams seem to be good teams, at least in the early preseason rankings. But however, I'm not sure that LSU is going to finish this season as a top 25 team, even giving top 25 votes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Bear in mind, as it stands right now, Florida State jumped to number 4 under Mike Norvell, who's done an outstanding job there. They finished 10-3, obviously, a year ago. I think, and I watched them pummel Miami, and I'm hoping to get to Tallahassee later this year if my health holds out to do it.
It's funny that everyone wanted Dion over Norvell just last year, and not both of them are doing well.
Well, it's not the worst thing in the world, okay?
Everyone wanted Dion, but the people who make the decisions.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking FSU fans, though, obviously.
Okay, well, let's turn over to Jeremy. You've been sitting patiently. Go ahead.
I mean, what's there to say? I mean, LSU has a new coach in Brian Kelly, who has Ed Ogeron's players that are trying to learn a new scheme and everything all over again, and they struggled. It's going to happen. It happens every time there's a coaching change in college football. They struggle early and come together, probably just like any young team in the NFL. When you got all rookies on your team, you struggle for the first few to 5. You struggle for the first 4 to 5 weeks, but he brought in half of his team from the HBCU.
He's not struggling.
No, he isn't struggling because he has guys that knew his scheme.
Yeah, he didn't get half. Half his team didn't come with him.
Yeah, it wasn't half, but he brought some key players though.
He brought in some very key players to be
3
leaders of that team.
He brought 3 players: quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver DB. And his son, so 4 players. I'm sorry, his other son,
who actually had a great day on defense too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you know what, George, before you answer this one, Carol Lombardia, right on par with me, is quietly one of the best coaches in the country if you watch him at Memphis. Oh, yeah, well, that's why. No doubt about it. And you can only imagine. So, all right, George.
Well, I thought Brian Kelly was a little bit too critical of his team afterwards. I did not think that he necessarily had to throw everybody under the bus, even if in the privacy of his locker room and the privacy of his coaching staff. I mean, he could have said those things, but he didn't have to come out right in the media and blast them afterwards. You know, sometimes Brian is a little bit too good for his own sake, I think sometimes. And I know he's very opinionated and outspoken. He's very emotional coach. But, yeah, I mean, they just got beat fair and square. I mean, LSU. And it sure shows. The new ratings came out, and they tumbled 9 positions, 9 in both the coaches poll and the other poll. They fell 9 positions. I think Florida State moved up 4 or 5 notches. And I know what you're saying, Mel, that you don't know what kind of team you have. Sure you don't, but you've been practicing with these boys for how many weeks now? You ought to know something about how they can perform a little bit at least. And I hate to see it, but this is one of the casualties of playing a good team early on, because as much as I like it, you don't see it as much anymore because they want to load up on the patsies at the beginning of the year, including my guy Harbaugh here at Michigan. And he had one of the lowest margin scores of any of those patsies, as Michigan won handily by 27 points, but they didn't even cover the spread. I'm digressing here. I don't mean to, but yeah, LSU certainly got handed it to them by Florida State. Congratulations to FSU.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, Mike Norvell's a heck of a coach, and Carol Lombardia knows it pretty well. Of course, you know, when you reside in the state of Florida, you know, obviously he had a tough situation that he inherited from, I believe, Willie Taggart, if I remember correctly. So he's trying to straighten that mess out, and now he's starting to put his stamp on that particular school, and he's doing that. One more college topic I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to go to the pros, will be Clemson at Duke. It was a 28-7 nightmare for Dabo Swinney. And I'm going to tell you, Dabo Swinney's Tigers that saw them drop to number 25 after being ranked number 9. You know what, Mel? I'm going to let you lead off. I know as much as you like college, we're going to start off with Mel and work our way around the horn.
Yeah, you know, as much as Dabo was a feel-good story, 6-7 years ago when Clemson kind of just jumped on the scene, and everybody was kind of on that Clemson bandwagon. Then Dabo became kind of he became kind of prickly. For lack of better terminology. Whereas I think he became a little arrogant, and in the way that he approached things, the way that he addressed the media, that little folksy demeanor he had wasn't really folksy anymore. I think he thought he had figured it out. He thought he was bigger, the biggest fish in the ACC. Really thought he should, thought he had a SEC team in the ACC, and to come to find out, you look at it, they just weren't very prepared to play yesterday. I mean, they moved the ball in between the goal lines, but they weren't able to punch it in. They had a field goal kicker a true freshman field goal kicker that they said hit it from 70, but he couldn't make it from 9 or 19 yards. I mean, he had it blocked, had field goals blocked, and then they laid the ball on the ground. The turnover that they committed, they were just never in that ball game. And you look at, they just weren't, didn't seem very focused. Thought maybe because maybe riding on the laurels of some of the other Clemson teams, and the quarterback looked a little shaky. I mean, I'm sure they wish they had DJU there right now, because DJU looked pretty good over there at Oregon State. This guy here, you got a new offensive coordinator that they brought in from the outside. Offense looked okay. They could run the ball. There's no question about that. They could run the ball, but they just couldn't punch it in. But Dabo, he has not embraced the latest college atmosphere as far as going out and recruiting kids in the transfer portal. That's something that he refuses to do. That may, obviously that seems to be an Achilles heel for him. It's something that he's going to have to take a look at. He's going to have to reevaluate the entire program. Defense was horrible. Brent Venables, I mean, we know how much he meant to that program, what the emotion that he brought to that team on the defensive side of the ball, and then that kind of fed over to the offense. They were be able to get the ball to the offense, getting some extra possessions. So I can't say that I was upset that Clemson lost, but I was really surprised that they lost in the way in which they lost. 28-7. I didn't see that coming. I thought they'd be a little bit more competitive than that. Happy for Duke.
Well, I'm going to get my opinion over with because I want to go around the horn. But before I do that, I just want to make sure we get Carol Lombardi's comments up there really quickly. Mike Elko won 9 games at Duke last year. Dabo doesn't have a great coordinator. Says coordinators, he won't be successful. I don't know. All right, Travis, hold it. So let me just go ahead and make sure KR. Then you can react accordingly. Dabo was never a coordinator before he was a head coach. Doesn't happen very often. All right, let me just say this. Travis, I'm going to turn over to you. Everything that Melfar Jr. just said, I agree with him 1,000%. Mm-hmm. Arrogant, prickly, whatever you want to do it. Right when you think you figured it out, you haven't figured it out. College football, to me, like any football, particularly college football like baseball, you eat humble pie very quickly, and it's the most mental thing you can ever imagine. It's not like you're dealing with the pro level. You're talking about college coaches and college players a much younger age, and that's where this puzzle becomes a little bit more interesting to figure out. So I'll say it one more time. Mel, arrogant, prickly, call it whatever you want. Thought he figured it out. He didn't figure it out.
Yeah, the word I wanted to say
right now, there are a lot of people.
The word I wanted to say.
Well, that's okay. But anyways, Mel, moving it along a little bit here, just so we know, okay, because I want to make sure you get your opportunities as well. I know a lot of things I'd like to say either, but since this is a family show, I don't want to get in trouble, and we are going to get in trouble. But the reality is this, okay? I'm not pulling for Dabo Swinney because of that 7-year period where he thought he was king of the castle and everybody else was a dirty rascal. We'll leave it at that. All right, I said my piece. All right, Travis, I know you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
You guys kind of covered all bases on this. Like, Dabo Swinney was truly feeling himself because he had top tier talent and it covered all of his coaching deficiencies. And eventually that offense got stale once you started getting just below elite quarterback play, below elite wide receiver play. I'm not saying these guys aren't good. I'm not saying these aren't 5-star prospects. I'm saying that they're not developing the quarterbacks. They're not developing these. They're not internally bringing in these players. They're just getting elite talent and winning. And eventually, you have to be a good enough coach where you can develop or coach these guys up. Even for you Jacksonville Jaguar fans, or any Jacksonville Jaguar fans out there, even Trevor Lawrence talked about it coming into the league. That was that big thing coming from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson, where he stated that there was no development there. It was kind of left up to the X's and O's between the offensive coordinators, and that's what historically has been at Clemson. So now you have a quarterback who's throwing the ball 40 plus times, barely hitting 200 yards in the game, and with the new offensive coordinator, you only brought in because the offense was stale last year. Like, that was the whole purpose behind all of this. So at the end of all of it, when you strip away it all comes back to Dabo. Not to mention, they also, I believe it was Jeremy's point, Jeremy and Mel, I believe, made the point about the transfer portal. They've had one transfer portal player in the last 2 seasons combined. That'll be a pretty big issue when you see a lot of teams being very successful with the portal. Even the teams that hate it still do well at it. Like, that's you hustling backwards. If you're trying your best to be the contrarian, to play the game different than everyone else, you better be a hell of a team like Georgia, like somebody running the wing T offense out here and being very good at it, or you're going to fall behind. And that's what's happening with Dabo, man. He's falling back.
Okay, Jeremy.
I mean, Travis just nailed it. You can't have elite players leave and not replace them with elite players if you're not going to develop what you have on your roster. It's 100% the problem. I mean, and Dabble is not a developmental coach. What he is a scheme guy when he has the right guys there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And is he
Fair
prickly?
enough.
Yes. Is he annoying? Yes. Is he an arrogant butthead? Yes.
Well,
But as long as he has the next to Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, etc., he'll be all right. But if he doesn't have those guys, he's not going to be that guy that's going to coach you up to +2 wins.
Yeah, I like the comments coming in. Carol Lombardia. Dabo is a CEO. Okay, well, maybe he is a CEO. I guess that's probably an interesting way of looking at it. All right, well, George,
I don't have much more to add, Scott. I mean, Duke,
okay.
you can't lose a game to Duke like that. You really can't. And they stumbled badly. 16 positions they fell in the latest poll. Now Clemson did. So they got a lot of ground to make up, and it's not going to be easy. But boy, oh boy, handed to Duke, a basketball school, coming up with a huge win on national television last night. And I got to hand it to the guys at Duke and the coaching staff over there. Yeah, Dabo is dabbling in some scary territory here, but not to be outdone. Duke came and played a hell of a game.
Yeah, and again, Carol Lombardia, Saban is a coach, and of course he reiterates once again, Dabo is a CEO. I don't think anybody is feeling sorry on this panel for Dabo Sweeney. All right, let's talk about some pro games. I'm going to turn it over to Mel. We'll spend a little bit of time on them, because I want to make sure that every one of Mel's topics completely gets addressed. So we're going to go around, and here's where we're going to start. Detroit Lions, Kansas City Chiefs. George Eichhorn, give me a brief assessment of what you think will happen and a prediction.
Well, if Kelsey doesn't play, I don't know what's going to happen. Basically, if you lose your number one target, I'm not sure. But that being said, I mean, obviously Mahomes has a bunch of other targets. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. Detroit hasn't faced that kind of stadium in a long, long time. The Super Bowl banner is raised, and it's going to be a very difficult game to win. That being said, there is so much optimism in the Lions camp this year, as you guys know, and rightfully so. They've come up with some great free agent acquisitions, some good, solid rookies. Again, Brad Holmes is drafted, so I'm not going to say Detroit's going to win, but I will say that Kansas City, it's going to be a hell of a ball game. They're going to win by no more than 6 points, the Chiefs. I'll go with 27-21.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Jeremy.
Well, it's not just Kelsey who's missing this game. It's Chris Jones, who is not on the active roster, which means he cannot play. So you have your defensive tackle that when he's not in at defensive tackle, you get no pressure from that D line or the linebackers because he's the one that eats up 2 and 3 guys in the middle of the line. So the Lions should be pounding it with the run game right up the middle, running Montgomery with that 4 yards before contact that the O-line creates. And that's without all 5 starters, which they have on the field. When they go to play action, Goff should be able to grab a panini maker, make a grilled cheese sandwich before he has to throw the ball to receivers when they develop. Then you got Kelsey's out. If Kelsey is out, and the determination will be made tomorrow afternoon after they recheck him, if he's having any discomfort when it's a hyperextended knee because of overcompensation in the joints that aren't hurt, he should not play.
Yeah.
Because they need him for the long haul. And I read that a hyperextended knee without ligament tears can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, and at least for 3 days, you should put no weight on it whatsoever. And when that happens, you hear a loud pop in your head, and a sharp, excruciating pain is exactly the description of a hyperextended knee that they gave. So, yeah, I don't expect that Kelsey will play, but if he does, that's up to him and the doctors to decide. So if he plays, I think at 80% Kelsey is better than 50% of the tight ends of the league.
All right, Jeremy, give me a score.
31-27, Lions win.
Very good. All right, we'll move it on to Travis.
Yeah, that's a rough time on a Thursday night game to be injured in a Tuesday, for your best player, your number one wide receiver target, and that stinks for the Chiefs and it stinks for Lions fans at least that really wanted to see a real true head-to-head combat for the first week of the season. However, I'm sure there are many of you out there that's just ecstatic for any opportunity for Kelsey, not to be 100% and just to find a way to get that victory. I do believe the Lions will win this game, but if I'm being 100%, I thought the Lions were going to win before Kelsey was out. And you know me, I'm not a Lions homer. I have no dog in this fight. I am a Jaguars fan. I just thought it was a bad matchup with that weak secondary for Kansas City, just to start. So now with the fact that the Kansas City's maybe, at minimum limited, if not, missing their number one receiver, I think it just kind of solidifies my stance on that, especially with Chris Jones not playing, and he is truly the Pat Mahomes of their defense. Yeah, that's a rough start for the first week of the season for the Chiefs, and we play them in week 2. So I'm really hoping that Kelsey, sit down, rest up, buddy. Yeah, it's okay, because I want to see the Chiefs start off 0-2.
All right. Well, I want a score out of you.
Oh man, yeah, I'm probably going something like 34-24. I think Detroit wins. I don't think it's close.
Detroit by 10. Right.
Mhm.
I like the versatility we have. All right, Mel.
Yeah, when I heard Travis Kelsey got injured, not that I was happy or anything like that, but I was like, okay, that helps. It doesn't hurt, obviously, if he's not healthy. It doesn't hurt the Lions' chances. I'm going with the Lions. I'm gonna ride with them. I like what Dan Campbell has done up there. Obviously, we haven't seen a whole lot during the preseason, but I think that they can come out, they can get up for this game, and they're going to find out real quickly, where they are as a football team. And we know where they left off as a football team last year. They left off as a pretty good football team last year. So hopefully they can pick up from where they left off last year and continue going on and not dig that hole for themselves like they did last year, going 1-6 in the first 7 games, I believe it was. And come out and play some competitive football and find out where they are real quickly. So let's see how the defense is going to hold up, because that was a problem. They did get better as the year went on, but we just have to see how they hold up. But I picked the Lions, and I'm going to go with the Lions. I'm going to say 35-28.
Okay. Well, here's what I think. The last time the Lions were on NBC, the Green Bay Packers didn't make the playoffs, and the Detroit Lions will become a trivia question as to the last team for whom Aaron Rodgers went out there and played against in the regular season. With that said, you know what? I'm going to go with the Lions 33-27, won on NBC once and ended it in week 17. And now they're going to start off on the same channel for which they're going to be on. So I expect the Lions to be 2-0 on NBC. 33-27 is the score. These are recorded predictions, so feel free to check us out later. All right, well, we have another prediction here, so we'll get that out there. And then we'll move on to the next one. Brent DeWitt, 34-31, was 2 interceptions from our new secondary. All right, we'll pay attention to that. On to the next game. We only have 2 that I want to talk about. Jordan Love is a new starter for the Green Bay Packers. George Eichhorn, how's that going to work out?
Well, just as we have been talking about earlier, you don't know what's going to happen in the first game, whether it's college or pros. Obviously, he's had a little bit of a test during the preseason, but I'm going to give Love the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I think that he deserves this job. He's been a steady understudy to Rodgers for several years. I really do think that he's got some decent tools. Question is does he have enough talent there surrounding him? And I don't seem to think so. They just don't have the players, the playmakers like they used to in Green Bay. So it's going to be an interesting season for them. But I will say that he's going to win his first game as the starting quarterback for the Packers. I'm going to put him into a win, something like about 24 to 20. Let's say 24-20. The Packers are going to win this one.
All right, Jeremy.
And this is the biggest question mark for both teams. Jordan Love, Justin Fields. Did Justin Fields learn to read a defense? Is Jordan Love going to be the next Hall of Fame drafted quarterback by the Packers? No one knows. And the fact that the management decided to give him a 1-year deal instead of picking up his 5th-year option, which would have been slightly more money, but more guaranteed, tells me that this is a prove-it year for Love to prove that he is that guy. Otherwise, they will move on, and either Sean Clifford or the next one they draft will be the starter next year. Prediction? I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a 3-point game no matter who wins. For the fun of it, Chicago wins 17-14.
Interesting. All right. Travis is smiling. I like that wide smile. All right, Travis, what you got?
Well, I gotta believe what the people on the ground seem to believe. And by that, I mean, if you look at the practice reports, if you look at, the people who actually cover, the beat reporters who cover the team, they state that Jordan Love has looked great this preseason, that he's looked phenomenal, and all the accolades and all the flowers and everything else. I have no idea how this guy's looked. I haven't watched one Green Bay Packer game this season, so I can only speak by the people who cover the team every day.
Yeah.
All that to be said, this is a situation where they actually gave him a good supporting cast, at least. Like, this team isn't stripped by any means. Like, they gave him not one but 2 solid running backs in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. Like, he has a solid receiving core with Christian Watson, who just blew up last season, and Romeo Doubs. Luke Musgrave is my personal favorite tight end out of the draft, and they have him in addition to Tucker Kraft. So, like, they have a solid offensive staff around him, and it's because it's Matt LaFleur offense. They're going to lean on the run game. That was something that Brett Favre. That's something that Aaron Rodgers hated. So, in all that being said, I actually think that he's in a really solid position, and I think he's in contrary to the position that Justin Fields was in. I actually believe in this Green Bay team. I believe in Matt LaFleur. I played for Matt LaFleur, in case you don't know. I played for him for 1 year up in northern Michigan. Like, I am a fan of the way that this team's coached. I'm a fan of him specifically, and also I'm not a fan of the Chicago Bears defense. They just signed Yannick Ngakoue, so that gives them 1 pass rusher. I just don't see them as being good enough to stop that team from scoring 21 points. And I think that's what it is. It's a race to 21, because I don't see Chicago scoring that much.
So what was your score again?
Oh, sorry. If that's I'm probably going with something like, let's say 27-17.
Okay. All right, Mel.
Yeah, I think that, Matt LaFleur is going to get an opportunity to run his offense, the offense that that he's accustomed to running, that West Coast offense that is more dependent on the run, the play action. It's not, Aaron Rodgers' offense. He's going to actually get to run his offense more like what he did, I think, his first year, and then he kind of acquiesced to Aaron and started throwing the ball a little bit more, went away from the run because you have, a potential Hall of Fame quarterback. You kind of tend to do what he wants to do. Now you got a guy who, I think if you look at their track record, the Packers of, when they decided to rid themselves of a Hall of Fame quarterback, they've done, look at Brett Favre, they've done okay. Now they've decided to move on from Aaron Rodgers. This guy's been sitting there for a few years, 2 or 3 years now in that system. They know what they have in Jordan Love. They feel very comfortable with who they have there. It's not a situation like San Francisco where they tried to put a square peg in the round hole by forcing Jimmy Garoppolo out and saying that he's our guy, but he was never really their guy, or they gave him the opportunity, however short-lived it may have been, but come to find out, he wasn't their guy. They ended up getting off of him pretty quickly. So I'm interested to see what Jordan Love will do. I think that I think they're a better football team than Chicago. Chicago, they still have a long ways to go from what they did last year, how they performed last year. I mean, it's going to be an uphill climb for them. So I have Green Bay winning this game. I think they're going to win it handily. I think it'll be 35-17.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read Brent DeWitt. It's either all you need is love or love stings. Well, you know what? The only thing I'll add to that comment is that we're going to find out the value of holding a clipboard behind a top-notch quarterback. With that said, I'll give the Packers the benefit of the doubt in a low-scoring game, 21-17. All right. And let's segue over to Aaron Rodgers and the Big Apple. It looks like that'll be the Monday night game against Buffalo. George, Aaron Rodgers and the Big Apple, how does that sound?
Wow, I tell you what, Hard Knocks, that's what it sounds like to me. It's going to be an interesting game, no question about it. Buffalo, I think, has got too much talent, though, up and down the roster. I think that, obviously it's a big, big matchup for national television. Huge, huge ratings they're going to have, just as the Lions and the Chiefs will have huge ratings. I'm going to still go with Buffalo, though. They've got too much going for themselves. I love that team, and I really think that they're going to come out and win that game. Not by a whole lot, but I'll say at least 30-17. I'll say Buffalo on that one.
Jeremy?
Well, with the news that Von Miller's hurt, they also lost, Zach Moss before the season even started with his jet ski accident and a broken arm. That means they're down to Damian Harris and James Cook, Dalvin Cook's little brother. I think it's a much closer game than anybody predicts, because there's been some things that I noticed with Josh Allen that you didn't see when Brian Daboll was there, because he was able to fix his mechanics. His bad mechanics are starting to come back. His interceptions, he was second in the league in interceptions, tied with who was the other one that he was tied with? Dak Prescott led with 15, and him and another quarterback had 14 interceptions last year. So that number's starting to creep back up, where it's getting more even. I think, the Jets could actually pull this off, and it'd be a close game, like 27-24.
Okay, that works for me. I like different opinions on both ends. All right, Travis, we'll shift it over your direction.
This is such a difficult one, man. This is such a hard one. And to all Jeremy's point.
You think I was going to sit there and put the easy games on? Are you kidding?
But to his point, yeah, a Bills team without Von Miller is obviously a different Bills team. I mean, that's going to be a very strong defense in an opening game with the guy with a brand new team, with Rodgers on a brand new team. That obviously matters, but how much will that loss of Miller truly be felt by this Bills team in week one, when the defense is normally, when these early season games, those first few weeks of the season, it normally leans defense. That's just historically how it goes. So if you're going to lean on that being true, then I'm probably going to put this as one of those, 24-17 wins. And I still am leaning Bills, only because I really, really, really want to see Rodgers go 0-4 to start this season. I want to see what happens with that New York market, man. No, it's not even that I don't like him. Well, again, I am a Matt LaFleur, former player, but at the same time, I'm just looking at their schedule. It's just I never loved him. Let me say it that way. But looking at the schedule, it just seemed likely. Like, they open with the Bills, Cowboys, Patriots, and Chiefs. That's a rough first 4 games on a brand new team, man. That's rough. And I want to see what that New York market really does. Like, if they give them those softball questions at the week 4 after an 0-4 start. That's really what it is.
I'll tell you what, if Candy Ebling was on this show, she'd be doing cartwheels over your comments. But let me put a couple scores up there real quick. I turn over to Mel. All right. Brent DeWitt says the Bears over Green Bay 27-24. Never know. It's possible. That could happen. I don't know. James Burgess. Okay. There. George Eichhorn's newfound pal here.
Yeah.
I got Jets 23-20, Bears 27-17. Okay. Let's roll with the chat room for I turn over to Mel. All right. 28-21. All right, Mel. Go for it.
I think Jeremy and Travis bring up a couple good points. Talking about his mechanics, talking about the quarterback's mechanics, and I think you look at the defense. You talk about Von Miller not being there, but also Leslie Frazier's not there either. He's not there calling the plays on the defensive side of the ball. So, as much as I really, truly, honestly hate to say this, and I kind of have to think that I'm thinking Jets here. As much as it pains me to say it,
It hurt me to say
I'm thinking Jets here, and I'm thinking 24-14.
All right, I'll end it with this: Buffalo 30, Jets 24. All right. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mel. You got 3 topics. Let's get through them. Just so you know, following Inside the Pigskin, have 108 Stitches baseball talk. So, first of our doubleheader tonight. Okay, Mel, take over.
I got 2. I'm gonna save one for my parting shot. So,
okay.
We talked about it a few weeks ago. I don't know if you were still in timeout, Jeremy, but we talked about Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, his little documentary, and he admitted to taking money. He got, this is after the fact now. Now they investigated him. He ended up having to serve a half a game suspension. My question, and Reggie Bush right now, because of some things is going after the NCAA because they were saying that it was a pay to play scheme. He's saying it's not a pay to play. And he's taking the NCAA to court. Should Johnny Manziel lose his Heisman Trophy, and should Reggie Bush get his Heisman Trophy back, George?
No and no. I don't think either one of them. I know we talked about that on the Pigskin, Inside the Pigskin a while back, and I don't think you can go back and fix everything or change everything. I mean, I know, the old saying, time heals all wounds, but I don't think that, we should be running after people, giving them this back or taking that one away from them. I'm not a proponent of that. I mean, take it in the context of when that happened, and he deserved to win that Heisman according to the voters. I do agree with you, though, Mel, when you do something bad, if that indeed, and he admitted to taking money, that is definitely an infraction. But I still don't think the Downtown Athletic Club or whoever organization is with trophies and stuff, or Maxwell Award, all these different college trophies, that they should go around either giving them back or taking them back and giving them to somebody else. I'm not a big fan of that, Mel. So, but that's just my opinion. I like to hear what all you guys say.
Jeremy?
They should take Johnny Manziel's Heisman away because that's exactly what they did to Reggie Bush. If they don't, then they should give it back to Reggie Bush because it's the same thing. It's taking money while you're in college when there was no NIL deals. So if you did it to one, you have to do it to the other.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just say this, Jeremy, you're on target all the way there. If I had to choose which one should have it, I would say Reggie Bush. But Johnny Manziel, I don't think much of him. But that's just my opinion. No, I just want to make sure that Jeremy knew I was right on target with him. All right,
that was a great comment. He was spot on. What do you think, Travis?
Yeah,
I mean, I think if what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Exactly.
I mean, right, but that's the part that stinks. I mean, this is no different to me. I feel exactly the same as this as I feel when you're 20 years into the future and all of a sudden the NCAA wants to go back and take away a team's championship. Does it change?
Don't even hurt me
I'm
talking
just
about
saying,
that Michigan one.
It feels it's that same feeling, right? Like it matters, but at the root of all of it, it doesn't matter. Like it matters in the sense that, yeah, absolutely, Johnny obviously should have his title. It should have his Heisman stripped. because the NCAA has pretty much convincingly on multiple occasions now come out and stated that they're just not going to give Reggie Bush his Heisman back. They pretty much drawn that line in the sand. And if that line is truly, as is drawn with the with a pen or with a shovel out, when they dug it in the ground, then yeah, Johnny Manziel should not have his Heisman. Obviously, he's admitted it. But nevertheless, I mean, they could come back 20 years into the future, like the Miss America pageant did with Vanessa Williams, and just say, "Hey, we're sorry, we overreacted," and give both of them, and kind of keep it moving in that way, whatever. But yeah, they're screwing it up either way because they're not consistent.
Yeah, so we brought us and had some good conversation. We were talking about Deion Sanders earlier, and how the landscape has kind of changed for new head coaches. I mean, has Deion Sanders changed the game for new head coaches and how they go in and attack a program? And we talked about it before when owners in the NFL, when they decide to make a change, they can't fire all the players. What they do is they fire the coach. Coach comes in, gets rid of all the players, and it gets, or most of the players, or quite a few of the players, and they bring in some other players, and that's kind of how they build that team. Deion, and granted, I understand it's only one game, and let's not get too excited here, but it was an impressive win that he had, doing it the way that he did it, given the fact that really these are a bunch of guys that nobody wanted, if you really think about it. They're in the transfer portal. They're in the portal for a reason. Now, I saw some guys that were in the portal, that were in the transfer portal playing for other teams. I'm like, man, this guy here could play. I mean, there were some guys out there. I was watching Georgia Tech and whoever they were playing. I can't remember who they were playing. And Louisville. And man, there's a guy from Michigan State, man. I'm like, man, how this guy? How is he not playing? Another guy from Tennessee. I'm like, how is this guy not playing? But for the most part, let's just say the transfer portal is full of people that really nobody wanted, and their opportunity. Has this changed the way? Now, there's a lot of good coaches out there. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of guys. I mean, what the guy at Duke is doing is outstanding. I mean, Duke is a very, very difficult place to win. But what Deion Sanders is doing out there is impressive in Colorado. Do you think this has changed the way that maybe changed athletic directors, maybe presidents' minds as far as how long it takes to turn around a program? George.
Well, that's a tough one, Mel. I mean, obviously, I applaud Deion Sanders and what he's done, and going to that portal and working that portal, getting the players that he felt he can work with and develop out there in Colorado is a very important thing. He is at one extreme, obviously, getting so many of these kids to go out there, as opposed to some of the other coaches who have no use for the portal at all. And then, of course, there's a wide gap in between. I think it is a sign of coaching in the future, Mel. I think that the coaches, as long as this portal exists, I mean, they might modify it a little bit. I don't know what the NCAA wants to do, but obviously it's shown to be a very good avenue for building your team, both with offensive or defensive talent, whatever you need. So, I mean, if you would have told me that MSU and U of M would have lost their two quarterbacks, Thorne and McNamara, respectively. Now, I know the J.J. McCarthy thing obviously was a little bit different because he was going to take over that job. Harbaugh liked him more, I guess, than McNamara, his ability. But that being said, yeah, there's a lot of talent that's in that portal. And you're right, there's some that is not good, but a lot of those kids are looking for a new home, a fresh start. And I think you'll be behind if you're a head coach in college football and not taking that seriously and not getting, the best players you can get to come to your place.
Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
Well, most of the time, the transfer portal, you're getting your 2, 3, and maybe some 4-star recruits that switch schools. Guys that are not going to light up in a big school, but will go to a little school, and just the opposite. Guys that went to little schools to better themselves so they can get into the big schools. The only exception to that rule was when Keaton Slovis transferred from USC to Pitt, and Jordan Addison goes, I don't want him for a quarterback, and transferred to USC. Other than that, that's what you see 90% of the time. That or any player that gets expelled, but it isn't enough to get them kicked out of the NCAA, you'll see one of those good players then transfer to another school, as long as they had the academics to get it.
Travis?
Business as usual, sir. I don't think it changes a thing. If I want to be clear about this. The transfer portal is a great tool that if you're not using it, falling behind. However, I don't think that Dion's changed the way that athletic directors are going to look at this, or that the way that expectations should change for future incoming head coaches as far as building a program. The biggest part of Colorado was the fact that they couldn't recruit people there, and the fact is Dion is Dion. Dion is one of one. Let's call a spade a spade. Those kids are going out there to play for Deion Sanders, just like those kids came to Jackson State to play for Deion Sanders, and Jackson State lost this week 28-10 against Florida A&M. That sounds like normal Jackson State. Did they change much overall? Maybe, maybe not. But that's Dion, and that's something that he can do because he has that cachet to recruit those kids to come to a place that they would never want to go. And he could do that, right? But a lot of coaches aren't going to have that cachet walking into the door unless you are, I don't know, Emmitt Smith. Is he interested in coaching these days? Like, I don't know. Like somebody who just has that recognition and the kids might still want to play for. Overall, I would probably say no, but to Jeremy's point, yeah, you will have those 4-star, those 3 stars, maybe those people who didn't have the right scheme fit at the previous school that you can pull from the portal. And so those technical coaches who are good at watching film or good at figuring out scheme, like college Bill Belichick's, hey, they're going to find those key players in the portal. And for that purpose, it is beneficial.
Yeah, Scott. Well, that's all I have. I'm going to save my last one for our parting shot.
Well, you had 2 topics that I think we're going to go ahead and carry over. You talk about the Pac-12, and you also talk about the Cowboys signing. We're going to carry those over to next week. How does that sound?
Sounds
a great
good.
show. I love the direction that we all went in here. I do want to make this comment from James Burgess. Dion did make one thing clear. Charismatic leadership matters. Oh, yeah, truer words couldn't be said there, James. All right, thanks, Mel. Well done, as always. With that said, okay, 108 Baseball Talk follows us. So, George, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Okay, you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. There's a link to the book I wrote, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, at the end of my column, where I'm a writer with columnists like Scott and Jeremy, and the South Florida Tribune, followed by the Motor City Tribune. It's up there, Jeremy.
Really? I was looking for it. I didn't see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but you can reach me on Twitter. Oh, I'm sorry, X at SanGSports99.
All right, go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, you can find me right here on this channel whenever I'm needed. I don't care what show it is. I just love to talk sports. You can also find me on my channel, Kneecap Biting with the Detroit Lions. You can also find me where George said, in the writings on the SouthFloridaTribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading, underneath great authors such as Scott Morganroth and George Eichhorn. And it is a pleasure to talk sports with you gentlemen tonight.
Well, glad to have you back on this show again. Mel, you keep picking on this guy for a timeout. He just moves around the shows, man. I know you like to give Jeremy a hard time. Yeah, Jeremy Ballrick, I've taught this guy to be not a one-trick pony, and he seems to be picking up on that mentor type of approach. So with that said, go ahead, Travis.
You can find my writings on bigcatcountry.com. You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes, Facebook, Threads, Twitter, X, Twix, whatever you want to call it. Like, all the socials. And you can find me here every Tuesday inside the Pigskin. And you can also find me on the Duval Dive Jacksonville Jaguars podcast on every Thursday or Friday morning at 11 a.m.
All right, Mel, that leaves us to you before I take over.
All right, I know you guys got another show, but I want to make one quick point. The Pac-12 is 13-0 after week 1. Now, how are they 13-0? SC, the now defunct Pac-12, 13-0 in week 1. SC had 2 games. Right now, in the top 25, the Pac-12 has 6 teams in the Pac-12. 6 teams, in the top 25. That's tied with the SEC with 6. ACC has 4. The Big 10 has 4, and the Big 12 has 3. The now defunct Pac-12. But anyway, you can find me on all the social media at Melfar Jr. That's Twitter, LinkedIn, not Twitter, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. And you also follow what we have going on down here in Atlanta and also up in Michigan for the youth at melfar.org.
All right. Well, just one last time before we switch her over to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Okay, Inside the Pigskin being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. We passed the 900 mark, so under 100 to go. We want to get there. We'll work diligently to do that. Your help would certainly greatly be appreciated. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in chat rooms. One way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter /X @Tribune South. Candy Eveling is behind the scenes. Great show tonight. Enjoyed all the camaraderie that we had. And, you know, like I said, one thing about this show is I really like to mix it up. I believe the chemistry, without a doubt, was on point tonight. So George Eichhorn will be joining me immediately after we get done here. So on behalf of George Eichhorn, Smoking Jeremy Ballrick, Travis Sherlock Holmes, and Mel Farr Jr., my co-host on the program, I want to thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. 108 Stitches Baseball Talk follows us. Good night, everybody, and enjoy your football weekend. And you're welcome, Rodney Fouch. Thanks, fellas. Good to see y'all. Good to see you, too, as well. So good night, everybody, and we will catch you next Tuesday night.